It's time that we returned to our beloved Clive the Cupcake. This little guy up here is Clive. He is the first puppet I ever made, and we are testing to see whether my newfound knowledge and years of experience can help me make Clive a bit better. And here is what we've got so far. This is Clive 2.0, and I've got a candle for him and some whipped cream today. I'm going to take you through how I made these accessories, so join me this week as we make him a lovely little candle and some whipped cream, and make poor little Clive here look a bit more like a cupcake and less like a demon. So, a couple of things to note here. I have been working outside all week. I have very sore lips, I've got a rash, I don't know what's going on, I've been up since 5. It suddenly got so cold and it's just not responding well with my face. So until I find my chapstick that always goes missing this time of year, I will continue to look like this, but we press on. A quick disclaimer before we begin. I use a mixture of very professional and incredibly unprofessional methods when making my puppets or whipped cream. If you see something here today that works for you, that's fantastic. But if you see something that you just can't stand, that's completely fine. This is just how I make mine. With that said, we're going to get started. If you have been keeping up with Clive at all, you might see some changes, and I'm going to walk you through what I've done. You can see here on his cupcake case that I've added some little pleats to it, so it looks more like one of those paper cupcake cases. And it's really easy to do. It's a bit of a faff in the sense of it takes too much time away from me, but actually I really like the way it looks. So all you want to do is you just want to pinch it along those lines of fabric. Keep those pinches in place, and all we're going to do is sew in and out each side, keeping that long line nice and pinched. And as we go down that line, you'll see that it starts to pleat. And what I would also recommend is that you do that sewing line on the outside. Usually when you're trying to add a bit of texture, you do it behind the fabric and then flip it over, and that's what you get. But with this one, I actually pleated at the front of the cupcake, because behind it, you kind of get a line, but it's not as pronounced. It's a bit of an oversight. When I pleated this, I didn't factor in that it would take more distance away from me. So much like Ramona and her back that I cut out by mistake, I just want to show you what we're dealing with here. So I unfortunately made it a little bit shorter, and I haven't yet put a back on that fits him appropriately. But it's all about the angles, and I shan't be showing you that angle again. But this is what we've got so far. So we've got a lovely little pleat here, and if you'll notice on top, I've got a little candle and I've got some whipped cream. They're currently pinned in place, but I wanted to run you through how I got to this point in a little bit of a different fun fashion. So we'll start with the candle. So with the candle, it's all about proportions. You'll see in Clive Original that it's a lot smaller than it is on him, because if I did that size, it wouldn't scale up to the Clive that we know and love today. So I kind of had to work with how I made it last time, but I just tried to make it a bit bigger. It was a bit of trial and error, because the first one I made, I don't have footage of it because it's not seeing the sun. It looked incredibly inappropriate, I'll just say that. It was too big and it was the wrong shape. It was a bad idea, so I started again and I came up with this. Basically, it's just a rectangle, a really simple rectangle. God knows how I got the height or width. I would just say eyeball it until it looks okay. But I got this rectangle here, and then I believe this to be a spool, but if it's not a spool, just the thing that holds the thread. But I got this and I drew a circle on the bottom. Now I knew that this circle here was going to be a bit bigger than necessary, and that's okay. But you want to start by cutting out the felt rectangle in the colour of your choice and then sewing up the side. Now it's important that you sew up the side first, because we need to know the circumference of that circle shape on the top, and it's much easier to do that once it's all connected together. So once I sewed up the side, I'm then presented with this gaping chasm at the top, and to fill it I cut out this circle in the same colour fabric, and instead of attaching it to the sides, I pinched it as I went around, and that enabled me to kind of stretch it over the shape, and I secured that circle on top. So I've got this shape here and I'm going to turn it outside in, and to do that I'm just going to get a pen and kind of shove it through as I go. So the next step for me when making a candle is to stuff it, and I stuff it first before I put the strip of decoration around it, and the reason that I do that is to just make sure that it's got its final shape. This is just a good way to get that shape and structure in there before we start wrapping around. So I've got some stuffing here, and I'm just going to begin by pulling it off into little sections and giving it a rub, and then I'm going to use my pen to shove it into the candle, and I want to make sure that that stuffing goes all the way down. We don't want a lumpy candle, we want kind of like a straight candle if we can help it. Okay, so I've got something that looks like this now. I've stuffed it, and what I'm going to do next, you see this lovely pink strip around the top? That's what I'm going to do, and all I'm doing for that is I've got this offcut of felt here, and I'm going to cut a straight long thin line of it, and I don't know yet how much I'm going to need, so I'm just going to do the whole thing. And now we've got that, I'm just going to pin the top of my strip at the top of my candle, so you can see this seam line that I've made here. I'm going to just attach it, so now I've put it at a bit of an angle here, and I've put my pin in. I'm just going to snip the top of it so that we get that triangle removed, so it kind of looks like it is a real decoration on an actual candle side. Pull it nice and tight because I don't want any creases. All right, and then you should have this tube with a strip all the way around it, and the way to connect it is very simple. I'm just going to do an in and out stitch all the way down on the left, and then one line all the way down on the right, just to make sure that they don't flap open, because if I was to do a seam all the way down the center of the spiral, you'd get those sides start to come out. So I've just made sure each side is kind of connected to the candle. And once you have sewn this strip to the candle, a piece of string, it can be any type of string you want, but ideally the thicker the better, something that kind of when cut will stand up on its own a little bit. And I'm just going to tie the smallest little knot in the bottom of it, and then I'm going to get, I believe it to be called a darning needle, the needle that's originally used for knitting, a really chunky fat needle. That's what I want, because it's going to fit my string through it. So I've got this little gap here in the head part where I haven't stitched it together very well, and I'm going to use that to my advantage, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to bring my darning needle out, give it a little twist because they're quite blunt darning needles. So I'm just going to bring my darning needle through the center of my candle, and I'm going to bring my string all the way through. You can see that the knot here has stopped it coming all the way out. You're absolutely more than welcome to connect this bit of string to the circle before you sew it on. The only reason I don't is because the circle is bigger than what we need, I don't know what's going to be the true center, and if I do it like this, you get more of a center as a finish, though you might be more organized to understand what is the right size of circle to begin with. And once you've got your little thing here, which looks really cute already, all you have to do is give it a little snip, and hopefully it will stand up on its own like that, and just press it back down so that it looks a little bit less rounded, and you've got yourself a candle. It's that easy. I did make the pattern myself, which is why it's so unorganized, but this is how I make my candles. In terms of the whipped cream, the whipped cream is a challenging cheese, I'll say that, and I did my best. I did my best, and I'm going to show you how I did it. So if we take a little look at what I've done, you'll see how intricate it is. Essentially, we've got lots of pleating and twists and turns. When we first started our quest into seeing whether we could make a bigger and better Clive, I used a cupcake pattern I found from a book. So I went back to that cupcake pattern book. I have said this a lot, the book is amazing. It's felt fun. It's so cool. I'm not sponsored at all. I'm absolutely not popular enough. However, if you did want to start sewing and you're a bit nervous about puppet making, this is an incredible place to start. Felt is really easy and really cheap. You don't need to leave seam lines, so you can use all of it. And instead of making like a bog standard purse or something, you could make a burger or a skittle. Anything and everything is in these books, and it is so cool. And inside here, they have a cupcake pattern. This book comes with an entire baking section. You can make a whisk, you can make a muffin tray, and you can also make the muffins, which is where I got Clive OG from. And I did also say that I was going to make his whipped cream the same colour as his cupcake case, and I was. However, I opened this book to get the pattern, and I was blown away by something. You can see here that there is a muffin with a beautiful mint green icing, and I was taken with it. I tried to find the colour and I couldn't find it, but eventually, after days and days and days of looking, I found it. I'm not usually a pastel kind of guy, but I do think that all of these colours together gel really well, and it looks really nice. And I do think that it's like kind of like a fresh pop in the icing as opposed to having it be the same colour. So I'm pretty glad that I did that, but it was inspired when I opened up this book and I saw this. So this is what I went from. This is the pattern for the icing. I've blown it up to be absolutely massive, and I've blown it up 3 times. I've stuck those 3 times together to make this monstrosity, and this is what this is. So it just gives you an idea how much length you're going to need to get the scale that you want. Now this pattern may look a bit overwhelming and quite frankly intimidating, but I ask you to bear with me because it is, and I'm going to try and explain to you how this works. So we've got 2 types of lines here. We've got this long dash and we've got this sort of triangle ziggy-zaggy shape. Now the long dash means that we're going to sew and stitch pieces together, whereas the dashy bit is the hold and pinch that we did for the crimping of his cupcake case. These 2 outlines here are going to fold over and connect together, and then we're going to do the same for the inside, and then these lines here are going to be pleated and pinched to give it a little bit of texture and edge. I've cut out this here with some lines on it so that you can see what we're playing with. We've got these squiggly lines and then we've got the straight lines, and the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to fold it in half, and I want to connect those 2 little lines at the top together. I'm so sorry because this is quite confusing, but bear with me, and you don't have to be careful with it either. You can literally just push it through and do multiple stitches at once. Okay, so you should have something like this, really simple, essentially just a rectangle folded in half and sewn that way. So the aim is now to sew these 2 straight lines together, and then we'll pleat the other 2. So I'm going to do the exact same thing just like I did down here. Now with this curved side I'm going to do the same again, in and out all the way down the rectangle shape. So just like this, we've got our rectangle here. You can see how one side is the open side where we folded it in half, and then the other side is the rectangle connected together. We've just done a seam all the way down there purely for texture. The middle part is still to be done, but that's not going to be sewn, that's going to be pleated. So if we look at our cupcake case here, we're going to use the exact same method. You can see the pleating that I've done that I spoke about earlier, and we're going to apply that method here right now to this on either side, and it's important that they don't connect. So make sure that you've got something in the middle there to make sure you're not going through, but on each side I'm going to pinch it and I'm going to bring my needle through. I'm bringing it back and forth, but I'm keeping it pinched the whole time, making sure that this other bit is not connected in any way, and I'm going back and forth, keeping that really nice and pinched, and I'm going to repeat this all the way down. So once again, a simple in and out stitch, but we are pinching it just to give it a little bit of height and texture, just like that. So you can see that we've got a little ridge in it here, and the way that we've stitched the other 2 means that they've naturally formed ridges as well. So I'm going to do the same to this side, and I'm just going to pinch and pleat all of this as well, just like that. We have an incredibly unneat example of the strip of icing. So we've got a square with pleats, so you've got like this long bit of chasm in the middle, and then you've got these little pinchy bits on each side, and that's the aim. So you want something that looks like this, and what you want to do once you've got this straight line, very easy, very simple now, now that we've been through the absolute floodgates of pain, just twist it like that and then combine it just like this, and that is what I've done here. So as I've gone around, I've twisted it and twisted it and twisted it, and then I've pinned it in place so that we've got these lovely little curls that look like whipped cream on the top. So the next step and the final step is to sew this onto his head and give him some permanent accessories. So I've got some pastel thread here, and I'm going to use that to attach this to him. I don't really have a method for how I'm going to do this. I'm just going to try and basically do it in the most subtle way that I can and hope that what I do makes it stay, but I don't want to sort of make it stick so much that it loses its va-va-voom. And I'm going to use kind of a thinner needle for this one, just because I want every incision to be as subtle as possible. So I'm just going to go for one of the thinner needles that I own. It's kind of just a very careful guessing game as to where you can go, kind of as subtle as possible, but allow him to still retain his shape. And you can see what it looks like when I untwist it. It is just that sort of square, long shape. Okay, and here we have it. This is Clive with his cupcake accessories on. We've got his whipped cream in a colour that I really, really like. The last thing that we have to do to Clive next time is is this. I've got these amazing glass beads that I thought could double up to hundreds and thousands, or sprinkles if you're American. In England we call them hundreds and thousands. So join me next time for Clive's last ever session with us before he becomes a real boy. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it and you found it relaxing in any way, then please do subscribe and ring that bell so that you can be told when we next upload another session. He's getting creepier by the hour. I'm so pleased to see how far he's come, and he looks amazing with his little accessories. So thank you so much again, and I shall see you in the next one. Goodbye.